The legend of Göbekli Tepe. Tucked away in the dusty hills of southeastern Turkey, near the Syrian border, lies a place so old, so mysterious, that it's quietly reshaping everything we thought we knew about the beginnings of civilization. This isn't a site you stumble upon in your average history book. It's not a tourist hotspot filled with camera flashes and gift shops. But archaeologists are calling it one of the most important discoveries in human history, and for good reason. Göbekli Tepe, which means Potbelly Hill in Turkish, is believed to be the world's oldest known monumental structure. We're talking about a place built over 11,000 years ago, sometime between 10,000 and 13,000 before the Common Era. That's long before the Egyptian pyramids, long before Stonehenge, and even long before people supposedly knew how to farm. Here's where it gets more interesting. Only about 10% of Göbekli Tepe has been excavated. The rest? Still buried under layers of earth, waiting to be unearthed. And if what's already been found is any indication, the deeper archaeologists dig, the more this ancient puzzle grows. The first serious discoveries happened in the 1990s, when German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt took a closer look at what was once thought to be a simple mound. What he found blew the doors off conventional history. He uncovered massive T-shaped stone pillars, some standing nearly 20 feet tall and weighing up to 10 tons, arranged in large circular formations. And these weren't plain stones. Each one was carefully carved with animals, symbols, and strange humanoid shapes. Snakes slither across the surfaces. Foxes, vultures, and scorpions appear again and again. There's even what some believe is the earliest attempt at representing mythological or spiritual ideas. And yet, there's no writing, no wheels, no metal tools, no domesticated animals. These were hunter-gatherers, people who were supposed to be too primitive to organize large-scale construction. So how did they manage it? And, more importantly, why? The most accepted theory is that Göbekli Tepe was some kind of ceremonial or religious site. Some call it the world's first temple. The idea is that various groups of nomadic people may have gathered here for rituals, maybe even for seasonal festivals, funerals, or spiritual events. But even then, there are questions. Why would people go to such extremes, carving and lifting giant stones, just for ceremony? And how did they cooperate on such a massive scale without a central government, or even farming to support a large population? Klaus Schmidt had a bold idea. He believed that sites like Göbekli Tepe weren't built after agriculture developed, they may have actually inspired it. Think about it like this: a large group of people comes together for a sacred event. They need food. They need shelter. They need a reason to stick around. Over time, this need could have pushed them to plant seeds, build storage areas, and eventually settle down. In other words, religion or ritual may have given birth to farming, the other way around. Well, another layer of mystery could be that the site was deliberately buried. Around 8,000 before the Common Era, someone, or perhaps let's say many people, decided to cover it all up. They didn't abandon it and let the earth reclaim it naturally. To this day, no one knows exactly why. Was it part of a ritual? Was it a way to close a chapter in their culture? Or did something happen that made them want to erase what they'd built? What's certain is that Göbekli Tepe forces us to rethink what we know about early humans. These weren't mindless wanderers scraping by in caves. They were organized, creative, and capable of incredible engineering, all before the invention of writing or the use of metal. And yet, for all its importance, Göbekli Tepe remains a place shrouded in questions. The more we learn, the more it dares us to challenge everything we thought we knew about where we come from. So we've walked through the stones and dust of Göbekli Tepe's physical past, but there are deeper questions that are still circling. What does it all mean? Well, that's where the real maze begins, because everyone from scientists to storytellers has their own take. Just like we mentioned, scholars see the site as a religious center, a place for rituals, ceremonies, or seasonal gatherings. But here's the strange thing: there's almost no sign that people lived there permanently. No homes. No fire pits. No trash heaps. It's as if people traveled long distances to meet at this site, did what they came to do, and then left. Which again, goes against everything we thought we knew. Usually, large monuments come after agriculture, because you need a stable food supply to support big labor projects. But Göbekli Tepe suggests that maybe it worked the other way around. Maybe shared beliefs pulled people together first, and the farming followed. Now, that's the grounded view. But then, there is another theory that is a bit colorful. Some believe Göbekli Tepe was built with help from ancient aliens. Yeah, Seriously. They argue the precision and scale of the construction would have been impossible for Stone Age people without outside help. Others think it's proof of a long-lost advanced civilization, one wiped out in a cataclysm and forgotten by history. These ideas don't come with strong evidence, but they've definitely caught the public's imagination. You'll find them in books, YouTube documentaries, late-night podcasts, and even some TV specials that run during the Ancient Mysteries hours. Part of what fuels these fringe theories is the mystery that still surrounds the site. Most of it is still buried. And for a site that's potentially the oldest monumental complex on Earth, that's a whole lot of unknown. There are also questions about why it was intentionally buried. You see, archaeologists believe the people who used Göbekli Tepe actually covered it up with dirt and debris. That's not something you see often in ancient history. Usually, sites are abandoned and left to erode over time. But this was deliberate, like they were trying to hide it. And nobody really knows why. Naturally, when science doesn't have clear answers, myths step in. Fringe theorists paint the site as a portal, a map of the stars, or even a coded message left behind by a forgotten species. The internet is filled with speculation about ancient technology, energy lines, and connections to Atlantis. The media, of course, eats this up. Not always in a bad way. The more bizarre the theory, the more attention the site gets, which has helped bring more eyes and funding to archaeological research. But it also blurs the line between what's evidence-based and what's entertainment. Now here's where things get interesting. What if none of these theories are right? What if the mainstream view is missing something? And what if the myths, despite being exaggerated, are pointing toward a real mystery we haven't quite grasped yet? That's the tension hanging over Göbekli Tepe. We have physical evidence, expert theories, wild speculations, and a whole lot of questions. And yet, despite all we know and don't know, the site remains mostly silent. But while the old debates kept circling, something quietly shifted. In 2025, new findings began to surface, and they're changing how we look at everything Göbekli Tepe was and wasn't. The 2025 breakthrough, new discoveries. In early 2025, something happened at Göbekli Tepe that no one saw coming. For decades, archaeologists and historians had stared at those mysterious stone circles and towering T-shaped pillars, trying to make sense of it all. Most agreed it was likely a ritual center, like we said earlier, built by nomadic hunter-gatherers who would come and go. It was never thought of as a place where people lived full-time. But then, the ground gave up a new set of secrets and everything changed. As the new excavation season got underway, a team digging around the outskirts of the already exposed enclosures stumbled upon something completely unexpected: remnants of living quarters. Not just scattered stones or vague outlines in the dirt, but actual signs of people staying there. Hearths, storage pits, foundation layouts. There was even a series of flat, smoothed areas likely used as workspaces. This discovery immediately set off a wave of excitement and disbelief. Up until now, no one had solid proof that the builders of Göbekli Tepe had lived on site. It was assumed that since the area lacked signs of farming, housing, or long-term settlement, the site must have been more like a sacred pit stop, a kind of spiritual rest area along ancient migration routes. But what was now emerging in 2025 didn't look temporary at all. The living spaces weren't the only surprise. Alongside them, archaeologists uncovered tools like stone blades, scrapers, grinding stones, and the remains of plants and animals. Wheatgrasses, legumes, gazelle bones, and bird feathers all pointed to people not only preparing food here but processing it in ways that hint at a settled lifestyle. Grinding stones suggest possible food preparation, hinting at a longer stay. In other words, this wasn't camping. This was home. That idea alone is enough to shake the foundations of what we thought we knew about human history. If Göbekli Tepe really did support a permanent or semi-permanent population, it rewrites the timeline for when people began living in one place and how early humans transitioned from roaming bands to structured communities. And that's only part of the 2025 revelation. As the team expanded their work beyond the original excavation zones, ground-penetrating radar scans revealed something almost unbelievable. At least 15 more enclosures were still buried beneath the surface, largely untouched. Some of these could be even older than the ones already exposed, potentially dating back 15,000 years. That puts them far beyond the era of domesticated crops or metal tools, into a time when most of the world still lived in caves or open plains. The scale of it all is breathtaking. So far, over 200 new standing stones have been identified, massive slabs, shaped and placed with careful precision. These aren't random boulders. They're purpose-built monuments, many arranged in circular or oval enclosures similar to the earlier ones. In total, researchers have now confirmed at least 15 new megalithic temples across the broader site. And the truth is, we've still only scratched the surface. Less than 10% of Göbekli Tepe has been fully excavated. The bulk of it remains underground, preserved beneath layers of time, waiting to be uncovered, and that might take up to or more than 150 years to be fully excavated. It's not an exaggeration to say that every shovel of dirt could bring another game-changing discovery. The 2025 breakthrough didn't just add a few more facts to the story of Göbekli Tepe, it literally shifted the whole narrative. For years, the site had been boxed in by assumptions, that it was a temple complex, that the builders were nomadic, that it wasn't a place of permanent life. But now, we have to think differently. The signs of daily living, the tools, the food remains, and the vast number of hidden structures all point to something far more advanced than anyone expected from people of that time. What we're looking at might not just be the oldest monumental site in the world, it could be among the earliest known communities, built long before we believed such a thing was possible. And if that's true, yeah, what else have we been getting wrong? Rewriting history, what the evidence means. So, let's take a step back and really think about what's happening here. For decades, archaeologists believed that Göbekli Tepe was mainly a spiritual site. A kind of ancient pilgrimage spot. You know, a place where small bands of hunter-gatherers would meet up, worship, perform rituals, and then go their separate ways. That was the story. It made sense for a while. After all, the site didn't show obvious signs of long-term living. No houses, no streets, no kitchens. Just towering stone pillars carved with animals and abstract symbols. But all of that started to shift with the 2025 breakthrough. What researchers uncovered changes more than a few footnotes in dusty textbooks. This wasn't just a place people passed through. It looks more and more like some of them stayed. And that's where things start to get really intriguing. If Göbekli Tepe wasn't just a religious center, but also a living space, then we have to rethink how we define the birth of civilization. The long-standing assumption has been that farming came first. That humans settled down to grow crops and raise livestock, and only then did they start building complex societies like temples, governments. But what if we've had it backwards all along? What if the need to come together, whether for spiritual reasons, community bonding, or some shared purpose came first, and agriculture was simply a result of that? What if places like Göbekli Tepe were the catalyst for early humans to settle and develop more reliable food sources? The evidence seems to lean in that direction. And when you look at the site's design, it only adds more weight to that theory. This wasn't some haphazard construction project by a group of wanderers tossing rocks together. The layout shows advanced planning. Each circle of pillars appears carefully aligned, possibly with astronomical or seasonal significance. The use of symmetry and repetition is clear. These weren't people fumbling in the dark. They had ideas about space, design, and purpose. And they etched them into stone architecture. However, the wild thing is that this happened before agriculture, before pottery, before metal tools. Göbekli Tepe is older than the wheel, older than writing, and way older than the Egyptian pyramids. Yet the architecture is on a massive scale. Those pillars weigh tons, and some stand over 16 feet tall. This was no